Hey guys, what's up? Pete Servold here, founder and owner of Pete's Paleo and author of Paleo Eats, Real Food, Real Simple, here with another awesome Facebook Live video on PaleoHacks Facebook page. I'm really excited about today. I'm going to teach you how to make paleo risotto. Made from cauliflower, and not just cauliflower rice that's supposed to kind of be like rice, but it's actually cauliflower. I'm going to teach you how to make creamy paleo risotto. I'm going to give everyone just a few seconds to get logged in. Make sure you can hear me. Let me know where you're watching us from. And as always, go ahead and put questions in the comment section. We'll get to as many as we can at the end. The recipe that we're doing today is not one of the recipes found in our cookbook, but it's very similar to a lot of the recipes found in the cookbook, which is how to make delicious paleo meals where you don't feel like you're eating diet food. You can actually get this cookbook right now for the cost of shipping alone. You can find the link to get the book in the comments section below. Just go ahead and click on that and you can get the book shipped right out to you. Is everyone hearing me fine? Are we ready to go out there? All good? Okay, cool. So risotto is just so good, and it's also a real hallmark of how you are doing as a culinarian. If you've ever watched Hell's Kitchen, you know that every single season of that show, Gordon Ramsay has risotto on the menu. And the reason is if you can make a good risotto, you're a good cook. It's a lot about technique, and it's also about getting the proper result. The proper risotto is not sticky and gooey. It's beautiful. It falls off the spoon. It's the perfect amount of starch pulled out of the rice to create that creamy texture. We're going to do that with paleo ingredients today. I've got half a head of cauliflower with the roots taken off. I've got a cup of chopped mushrooms. And then on the stove, I have a few cups of bone broth getting warm with a ladle in it so that I can pull this out. When you're making risotto or making cauliflower risotto, a lot of times people know that they need to add broth and kind of stir and add broth and reduce and add broth. But what they'll do is they just pull the broth or the stock out of the fridge and they just cook with cold stock. That completely stops the cooking process. Every time you're adding cold stock in, it cools down and then it has to warm back up before it can keep cooking again. So it's going to take you forever to make it, and it really arrests the process of pulling the starch out of the risotto, or in this case, the cauliflower. Now there's no starch in cauliflower, but there is fiber in cauliflower, and that's going to help give us that creaminess, as well as the collagen in the bone broth. All of that's going to give you the body and mouthfeel that's going to be similar to risotto, but without any of the starch. First, I'm going to make my cauliflower rice by just breaking this up gently into the food processor. Just lightly pulsing it. Always have a couple stubborn guys. You can throw those back in on their own at the end once you get the first batch out, and they'll chop up for you. But that's the texture that you're looking for right there. I'm going to toss some, I have bacon grease that I'm cooking with today. You can use clarified butter. I highly recommend either some sort of animal fat or clarified butter for this process. Now from here on out, everything that I'm doing is exactly how you would make risotto in a fine dining restaurant. There's no difference in the process or anything like that. Start off with an onion. I've got the stove going with the bacon fat at a nice medium. You're going to toast and saute all the ingredients, and then you're going to start adding your bone broth. This up a little bit. So nice and small on the cut. See, the idea is that the onion is as small, if not a little smaller, than your cauliflower rice. It really helps keep the perfect texture. So no big pieces of onion. This is half of a small onion for half of a cauliflower head. Get towards the end, don't go all the way through, so that you get nice consistent pieces. You have beautiful, perfect brunoise onion. That one piece will drive me nuts. Go into the pan, nice hot pan. You hear that, you know that it's nice and hot. You're looking for waves in the fat. or little bubbles in the ghee, and that'll let you know that it's time to add it. With any good cooking, every time you add an ingredient, add a little pinch of salt. Adding a little bit of salt every time that you add an ingredient isn't about making the food salty. Salt is a physical tool in cooking. The salt will denigrate the cells and release the moisture of whatever ingredient you're adding. So salt is more about just adding a little bit as you go when you add every ingredient, and that pulls the moisture out, and it allows everything to come together and really taste like everything that you're cooking with. The last thing you want to do is cook food just all the way through, and then at the very end start adding salt until it tastes good. It's just going to taste salty then. So a little bit of salt along the way is almost like using a masher and going in and breaking up, or juicer, and pulling the juice out of all the ingredients that you're working with. So we're going to keep this nice and light. I want a nice light color on this. If you wanted to do a darker color, you would cook the onions until they caramelize. This, you're just looking for them to sweat a little bit and get a little translucent. And now we're going to go ahead and add the mushrooms. I just use little baby portobellos, but whichever you want to use, whatever's in season. Morels, chanterelles are some of my favorite ingredients to cook with. So mushrooms have a ton of water. They're 90 to 95% water. So when you add the salt to the mushrooms, again, it's going to pull out a ton of moisture. You're really going to make that mushroom stock almost in the pan just from the moisture of the mushrooms alone. Again, it's about pulling the flavors out as you're cooking, letting things come together naturally. It's super important. And again, this is right now, this is no different than cooking fine dining risotto. It's really this simple. You just add the ingredients first that are going to go into the risotto, saute them off a little bit, then we're going to add our rice. We'll add the stock slowly as we go, and we're going to get some beautiful cauliflower risotto. I'm going to go ahead and clean up my station a little bit here while the mushrooms cook. Always important to clean as you cook. Prevents cross-contamination, and it makes sure that your significant other who does the cleaning will still want you to cook for them. I've definitely made messes that weren't worth the dish. You can ask my wife. And I've learned along the way to always clean as you go. You can see we've got, flip the light on this situation here. Really beautiful, lightly sauteed onions. The mushrooms are getting softened. Right here I have my warm bone broth. Now it's just slightly, a little bit of steam coming off of it. It's not boiling or anything like that. We're not trying to cook this down or reduce it. We just want it to be hot enough so that when I add it to the pan, it's not creating a situation where the pan needs to heat back up again at the end. That's death. It'll take forever. You'll never have it done. I learned that by getting screamed at on a Friday in the middle of service because I had cold stock and they needed the risotto, and it was taking me 25 minutes to make something that should take me 7 minutes, and it was because of the cold stock. So instead of getting yelled at by the chef or having a saute pan thrown at your head, just warm it up ahead of time. I'm going to go ahead and add in our cauliflower rice now. Now it's important before you start adding the broth that you let the cauliflower rice toast a little bit. This is going to give it a little bit of caramelization and a little bit of flavor. Get a pinch of salt. And you can see that really nice fluffy texture that you have. Toss everything together. It's always good to have a good risotto spoon. A lot of times I remember in culinary school and just kind of learning about making risotto, you hear it needs to be a wooden spoon and you can only stir it in one direction. A lot of the stuff in food that you hear makes good sense. It's kind of time-honored traditions that have been passed down where even if we didn't understand the science of it, it made sense. This isn't one of those. You can use whatever kind of spoon you want. It doesn't need to be wooden, and you don't need to do it in one direction. The point is that you're breaking it up and pulling the fiber out of the vegetable as you're working. Always when you're cooking risotto, keep it on high the whole time. The whole point is to work fast, have your mise en place ready. Mise en place, everything in its place, meaning having all your ingredients and everything set before you get started. So you can see if you just kind of stopped here and sauteed it through for a couple minutes, you just have some mushroom and cauliflower rice, which would be perfectly fine on its own. But I think the whole point of eating paleo is learning how to recreate the things that you really can't have once you go on eating the paleo lifestyle. And for me, one of those big things is risotto. So you can see, just add a little bit of the stock, always on high, letting the broth reduce down, leaving the flavor of the bone broth and the collagen behind. Let it reduce down till it's almost au sec, which is the French term for almost dry. So you want it to almost start to brown into the pan, and then you're going to add your next batch of broth, which is going to release any of the risotto, the cauliflower risotto that's sticking to the pan, also give it a little bit of color, and continue to cook it down. Go ahead and, while that's doing that, I'm going to grab the perfect dish to plate this in. So you can see it's almost down to dry. We're going to go ahead. Now if you were cooking real risotto, you'd be standing over this pan for 25 more minutes because rice takes a lot longer to cook than the cauliflower. But with the cauliflower, you're really only going to need to add one more batch of broth, and you're going to be all set. Now the stirring is where you earn it. Look, stirring is what's going to pull out all the fiber and give you that nice creamy risotto texture. So to do this, I used a half head of cauliflower, half of a small onion, 1 chopped cup of mushrooms, and about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of stock, or bone broth. And you don't need to use, if you buy your bone broth from Pete's Paleo, our bone broth is super collagen. It's more almost a health drink as much as it is for culinary purposes. So I cut it with 1 part water to 1 part stock. This is really cool watching this come together. This took us a little over 10-15 minutes. Plenty for lunch for 1, plenty for a side with 2 with some grilled chicken breasts. And remember, the cauliflower is gonna pull some of the moisture up as you finish. So don't cook it until it's completely dry when you're ready to serve. You just want to cook it so it's got a little bit of moisture left in the pan. 1 last hit of salt. There we go. I'm going to add a little olives onto this because I think this is a rich, kind of a creamy dish, and the olives will help cut through some of that creaminess. Just rough chop. There you go, cauliflower risotto with mushrooms and olives. Again, don't forget that recipes just like this can be found in Paleo Eats, Real Food, Real Simple. It's a cookbook that we did together, my wife and I. It's got tons of great, simple recipes that taste delicious and look awesome just like this one. You can find the link to get the book for the cost of shipping alone in the comment sections below. So go ahead and look in the comment section, check out the link to get Paleo Eats, Real Food, Real Simple. And I'd love to answer a couple questions before we sign off if there's any.
Will you go over the list of ingredients one more time? People are wondering about the amount of cauliflower and broth, and just also there is no dairy in this dish.
0 dairy. Now you can do this with butter or you can do it with ghee if you want to have those flavors. I use, my fat was bacon fat today, and I use a tablespoon of bacon fat. The rest of the recipe was half a head of cauliflower with the stem removed, half of a small onion brunoise, which means tiny cut, rough chop a half cup of portobello mushrooms, some salt, and 2 cups of bone broth warmed up before you get started.
I have a quick question for you.
Yes.
Why, I see that you didn't use our non-stick pan.
Yes.
Was that on purpose?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you want the vegetables to stick to the pan because that helps them caramelize faster. And because you're deglazing with the bone broth, you're going to get that beautiful caramelized flavor. And then when you deglaze and add the bone broth a ladle at a time, it pulls all that caramelization off of the pan and makes it non-stick for you. So yeah, always in a non-stick pan with this. But again, you got to have your mise en place ready. You got to have your mushrooms chopped. You got to have the broth hot. You got to be ready to roll when you make risotto. It's not something that you go in and kind of figure it out once the pan's on.
Okay. A couple more questions. Amanda, the link to the cookbook is down in the comment section below. It should be pinned to the top for you. Diane, we do ship the book nationwide, internationally. Can you clarify for Jackie what ghee is?
Ghee is the Indian term for clarified butter. Typically in India, they make the clarified butter where you essentially just slow cook butter until the dairy solids fall to the bottom, and then they'll add some spices and things like that. But all we're talking about is clarified butter. You can make that at home if you want to, but you can get ghee at most supermarkets nowadays.
And so it takes the proteins out, which
takes
people
the dairy
are
proteins
to.
out, which makes it paleo, and also a lot of all the allergens that are in butter come from the dairy protein, so it removes that.
Okay, Anna wants to know if you can use a cast iron for this.
You can. It would be very bold of you to do it. Because of how hot cast irons get and the fact that you're constantly rolling at a high heat, and because typically cast irons are kind of bigger, you could end up with a lot of the stuff maybe kind of burning or sticking. If you have a smaller cast iron, like an 8 or a 10 inch, that would be, if you're going to try that, that would be the one that I would do. And I would only do it if you have a really well-seasoned cast iron pan.
What brand of pans, Alba wants to know, do we use? And Tracy wants to know that too.
We use All-Clad, which I know is not the cheapest, but All-Clad is a brand that, you know, the thing with culinary ingredient or culinary tools is it's just like my knife, it's just like the saute pan. You buy it once and that's the last time you're ever going to have to buy it. So All-Clad is hands down my favorite to cook with. Emerald makes a line that you can get at Target that's very similar and is much cheaper, the Emerald Agassi cooking line. But All-Clad for me is hands down the best to cook with.
Ross wants to know what we think of Kerrygold Irish butter.
It's delicious. We eat butter in our family. Not all the time. A lot of times we use ghee. But Kerrygold's a great way to go. Plugra is another European butter that I absolutely love, the fat content. Make sure it's always non-salted versus salted. Salted butter salt is a preservative, and so salted butter just means it's older butter, and it also has salt added, so you don't know how much salt's already in there before you get started. The big difference between European style butter and say Land O'Lakes or American butter is we put a lot more water in our butter here. European style butter has a ton more butter fat per content and much less water. I'll never forget in culinary school in baking and pastry, the chef took out a pound of American butter and a pound of European butter. And if you beat the American butter with a rolling pin, water would literally squirt out all over the place. And with European butter, that didn't happen.
Jessica, sorry to hear about the cauliflower issues. We do have a ton of other recipes in our book, Paleo Eats, that do not contain cauliflower. So hopefully there is something in there for you. And the link for that is in the comments below. Sonia, hey from
Just
Tacoma.
real quick, you can do it with broccoli. You can do it with broccoli. It won't necessarily be as creamy, but you can put broccoli in a food processor, and it'll get ricey for you, and you can do the same thing but with broccoli.
Sonia, hey in Tacoma, she wants to know where she can get your apron, and we've had this question before. And here is the brand name.
Hard Mill.
Hard Mill, and it's actually
out of
from
Seattle.
your state. It's from Seattle. Let's see.
Like I feel like I could weld in this thing. It is really nice.
Teresa wants to know if we can use coconut oil in that recipe.
No. Unless you want it to taste like coconut oil. I feel like paleo people, we use way too much coconut oil. It's a great fat. It's great for you. It's great for cooking. But too often we just assume that it can be a substitute for anything. You really want to use either animal fat or clarified butter for this. Otherwise, it's not really going to taste like risotto. It'll more taste like Thai sticky rice. All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. We'll see you all next week. Don't forget to get your shipping only copy of Paleo Eats Real Food Real Simple. The link is the first link in the comment section below. Thank you so much again. I'm Pete Servold. We'll see you next time.